Roll call.
Here. Is your mic on?
If you're saying my name, I can hardly hear anything.
I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on again.
Here?
Booth, okay. Johnson,
Here.
Hadley,
Here.
Zittergren.
Here.
Okay, in light of the potential of going into closed session, I'm going to move item 10 down to just below 15, I believe it is.
Yes.
Just for the convenience of those who are on Zoom or whatever. Then for public comment, I've got Carly Hayden Foster, who's going to give us a brief update on the MEU task force. And if you want to come up to the microphone, that'd be great, Carly, and kind of test it out to see if they can hear you, okay?
Steve, can you hear me? Okay, looks like Steve is muted now,
Just be
but
a
that's
little
okay. He
louder
can hear me.
probably because of the mask.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Great, thank you. All right, hello, hi, I'm Carly Hayden Foster. I am the chairperson of the task force that you established. And so I'm just giving us a brief update on what we have been up to. So a lot of what we've been doing up to this point is still engaging in conversations. And so we do have an education and outreach subcommittee that has primarily been Mark Lovelace and Karen McLean. And they have been engaging with conversations with various community members, doing a lot of listening, asking a lot of questions, and getting input so that we as the task force can get a better sense of what kind of questions we need answered and what kind of information we're going to need to find as we move forward with working towards the goals that you've laid out for us in our duties. And so they've been working on that. That's been a lot of what our efforts have been. There is still progress being made on a data request letter that will ultimately go to Alliant. They're working out the details. Again, we've got another subcommittee that's working on that. We want to make sure that we are asking for the information that we need so that if eventually we are able to get to the point where we are asking for another feasibility study, that we want to make absolutely sure that we'd be able to build that on solid data. And so we're working towards figuring out exactly what we need, and we've got a draft that we're working towards. And then one thing that we have been able to do is recruit some replacements for the people who stepped off the committee. And so there are 3 names who I believe will be coming to you tonight. I don't know if you guys are going to vote on that.
Yeah, they are on the agenda.
Great. And so we have managed to recruit Larry Wilson, who was an Alliant employee for a long time, more than 30 years. Tom Marquardt, who's the chief medical officer at Winneshiek Medical Center, and Reginald Larson, who is the high school tennis coach and formerly math professor at Luther College. So that is what we've been up to.
Okay, I have been attending. I have been watching the education committee, which has done a fantastic job and still have some left. I wanted to make sure that the council knows at the point when they present, we will have that maybe as a work session where people can ask questions, or a session that's not right in the council meeting so that you can digest what they've done. But they've done an excellent job of work throughout exploring the community.
Yeah, they've been really put in a lot of long
they have.
hours, and just having communication and conversation with people. So thanks very much for them.
Questions or comments? Okay, well, I appreciate your hard work with that, Carly.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the council for something that is not on the agenda? You do not see anybody? So we'll go on with the consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the April 19, 2021 meeting. Item B, claims. Item C, Resolution 3183, approving fiscal 21 unbudgeted transfers. Item D, Resolution 3184, setting June 7th, 2021 as the date and time for a hearing on a tobacco violation for Backwater Spirits. Item E, renewal Class C liquor license for Dixie's Beer Garden, including Sunday sales and outdoor service area privileges. Item F, special event application for Loop de Loop Half Marathon, September 18, 2021, 6 a.m. till noon. Item G, request from Renner County Republicans to use 2 parking spots at 208 West Water Street for a spring fundraiser, May 8, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Renewal Class C liquor license for Good Times, including Sunday sales and outdoor service privileges. And item I, Resolution 3186, resetting May 17, 2021 as the date and time for a public hearing on the proposed fiscal 21 budget amendment. I would note that there's 3 items that were taken off from the original agenda that had to do with the easements for the Fox and Coon Club property that Kelly wanted to review closer.
Yeah, the parties are working on language for the terms, basically the rights and responsibilities of the parties to the easements. The easements were indicated and stated in the development and purchase agreement and the plat you approved. But in working through this, we decided we better get some of the actual terms agreed to before we close. And talking to Kelly's attorney, we wanted some more time just to work through those things. No major hangup, just time is a factor.
And so that would be I, J, and K that are off?
Right, the original I, J, and K
Okay, yep, that
were
sounds
just
good.
taken off. So,
Okay.
I'd move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Luce would second that.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion?
I saw on Dropbox the request for G. And it was a nice letter, but it wasn't an application. I know we're discussing Jeremy's outdoor dining permit thing, but do we actually have an application that we use for closures of parking spaces
no.
in the meantime? So no, it's good?
no,
Okay.
Just most of the time, people just will submit a letter.
Okay.
Much like he did.
Is that application request, have they been in contact with Jeremy to discuss sort of the need for, we're going to pass a resolution later, maybe saying that we need retro-reflective posts at the corners and curbs, so like.
I'm not understanding you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'll try again then, Wanda.
And are you referring to the G, Winnebago Republicans use for parking spots? That's what we're,
Right, that they are going to use two parking spots in the right of way as outdoor dining, right? And I'm just wondering,
no, I don't
No,
think
it's
I thought it was for seating during the event is what I thought the letter said.
Well, it's just for use during their fundraiser for those 4 hours. 2 to 10 to 2. So it's just for those 4 hours. It's for extra seating,
Right,
but it's not for dining.
okay.
And I'm assuming it's very temporary, so to
Right.
put in more than just a barricade would be overdoing it.
No, I was curious what, like what safety precautions they were taking. I want everyone to be safe, so.
Well, we'll make sure that that gets taken care of like we do with every other request that comes in for use of parking spots for these temporary locations
Events,
like
okay,
this.
all right, thanks.
Yeah, I guess my point was just that if our insurance group is recommending that if we have higher insurance rates for outdoor dining, maybe we should be doing it for temporary closures too, because if we're liable, we're liable. It's not something can happen at any time. We can approve this one, but perhaps we need to look at a permit for all closure with insurance, just
Mhm.
from a standpoint of
I won't argue that.
coverage.
I won't argue that.
that will be something we should, when we're looking at finalizing some of the
Yeah,
other pieces.
I think those are things we talk about. In the past, you know,
Okay.
it kind of depends on the situation, whether we've actually required it. But typically, even when somebody asks to put like a dumpster
Right,
out because they're doing some remodeling, if it's in the right of way,
right.
we have required them
Yeah.
to do that. Now, most of the time, then they're kind of working and hauling stuff back and forth.
But
into
even more
that
reason to
right-of-way.
have a insurance policy in place.
Right, right. So, yeah. So those are things that we can talk about, you know, when we come to that particular one too.
Okay.
So,
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Chisholm,
Aye.
Neiman's not here. Carlson,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Zittergren,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Conduct public hearing on plans, specifications, form of contract, and taking of bids for the 2021 East Main Street Improvement Project. You have any
No,
background on
I've
that?
had no comment.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak concerning the 2021 East Main Street Improvement Project, either in-house or on Zoom? I don't see anybody in-house. I don't see anybody on Zoom. So I'll close the public hearing. Consider Resolution 3185, approving plan specifications, form of contract, and awarding the bid for the 2021 East Main Street Improvement Project.
I'd make,
Luce would move acceptance of Resolution 3185.
Hadley will second.
Motion made by Luce, seconded by Hadley. Discussion? Jeremy, do you have anything?
I do not, unless there are any questions.
Any questions? Seeing, hearing none. Roll call?
Luce,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisholm,
Aye.
Zittergren,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Consider approval of city manager position profile and advertising plan, and I believe Brent Hinson is, I think I see him on Zoom.
Yes, ma'am. Is it okay if I kind of brief you a little bit and then answer any questions you have?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for having me here virtually tonight. I really appreciate the input that I received on the draft position profile. In particular, I got some copywriting assistance from Steve Z. And I'm just going to call you Steve Z so I don't have to pronounce your last name. No offense.
I'll mix it up with
But
Steve.
but I got great copywriting assistance from him. Emily also had some good input, and I think we just really got a good position profile out of this. So thanks everybody for taking a look at that. Were there any other questions as far as, or comments as far as the position profile goes? Kind of the most recent one that I've got is May 1st. So if you have the May 1st position profile, you have the most recent one.
Brent, I sent you just some quick information today that from our library director, Kristen Torsdahl.
Oh,
Could you incorporate just a few of, you know, some of those things that she was just updating, facts that she was updating? Into the profile?
absolutely. Yes, I apologize. I must have missed that. I kind of came straight from the office here. So I will take a look at that, Wanda, and I will make sure that that information gets incorporated.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions on that, and it is a pretty significant document, and that's why I wanted to give you guys a few days to look at it, so you could kind of grasp what all the information that's in there. I think, you know, our goal is to get candidates excited about the Decorah opportunity here and to, you know, get all the qualified candidates we possibly can taking a look at this. So that's, you know, it's not the end all be all. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's lots of other questions candidates have, but this is kind of designed to kind of whet their appetite and get them excited about some of the good things that you guys have going on around. So that's that, and certainly can take any questions that you guys have later in the presentation. I don't expect to have a real extensive presentation beyond this, but I do have a couple other things that I outlined in a memo to you that I would like to talk about. So as far as the timetable for the search process, we've got the same, I gave you in the memo kind of the same process that we talked about when I was there physically on April 5th. We're shooting for interviews July 9th and 10th. So please take a look at your schedules for those dates. That's a Friday evening or Friday afternoon and a Saturday, basically the first half of the Saturday. Just kind of plan on being available. So if you could take a look at your schedules on that. Otherwise, no new information there. I did also provide you kind of an outline of a typical schedule that we do for interviews, as far as what that Friday and what that Saturday look like. And I'd be happy to take any questions or comments you might have on that. Certainly, there's still more time to think about this and think about, well, it really has worked. Like one example I'd bring up is at the first meeting I was at, you guys kind of brought up that the Hotel Winneshek was a great place for the reception for the police chief candidate. And so, I think that's great input and definitely something we can look into doing. But if you have any other comments or anything that you'd like to see incorporated in here that isn't, just let me know.
Well, I know we want to make sure that we have adequate time for the public to be able to get to know the candidates and being able to ask any questions that they might have.
Yep, and usually the way this works, with allowing 2 hours for a reception should allow plenty of time. Usually what we end up getting is we will get, like if you have 4 candidates, they'll kind of stake out different corners of the room and people will just kind of rotate through and talk with each because, your type of citizen that's engaged enough to want to come to a reception like that wants to talk to each of the candidates individually and kind of get a sense of them. And so it tends to kind of work itself out pretty nicely as far as that goes. And you just want to make sure you allow adequate time for that. So.
Well, I think the position profile that I look is very respectful. It's packed with equally amount of activities that we have and the energy that we have within the city. So at least from my standpoint, I'm looking forward to some great applications.
Yeah.
Council, do you have questions or comments for Brent?
Just thanks for all the hard work. It looks good to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And kind of the last thing that I would just offer is I do talk about in the memo kind of the wage and benefit package for this. I mean, the good news is you guys are fair in what you've paid and what your benefits package looks like. I think you had a good employment agreement in place with Chad. I've been working with Mr. Anderson, the city attorney, to get that employment agreement revised so that we've got something that we can work with for negotiations with the preferred candidate eventually. So I think we're in really good shape unless there's any questions of what I presented. I would say the most common questions that come up during this point are the salary range, which, as I point out, you guys were kind of just a little bit above the top end of the salary range that I recommend for advertising with Chad. So I recommend 120 to 130 for this, for a range. And then the other thing that typically gets some questions or comments is the severance provision. If the administrator or if the manager were to be let go without cause, that's a 6-month severance provision. That's pretty standard for a community of Decorah's size, and that's what Chad had. So I think that that's, those would be the two most common things that would come up with questions. Kind of the quick answer I have, because sometimes you might get the comment that, well, gosh, I'd like to have a 6-month severance provision in my job. But the reality is, the city manager job is one of those where you can certainly be let go at any time, even if you're, performing generally, competently. There just could be some circumstances that, lead to that council wanting to move a different direction than maybe what the administrator offers. And that can be, essentially kind of no fault of their own, or yeah, it's a little unusual as far as that goes. And then kind of the other thing I talk about with the severance provision is usually, with a city the size of Decorah, for if somebody is let go without cause, it's probably still going to take them 6 months to find a new position. So that's just kind of an insurance for their family. And so that's like I said, fairly standard out there in the world of city management. So any questions anybody has on that, or anything else that I put in the wage and benefit package items?
No, actually, Brent, they haven't seen that sample contract yet, that
Oh.
proposed contract, because John just sent back his comments today that we talked about here, so they haven't seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I did kind of address that in the severance pay, or I addressed it in the memo.
Right.
So
Mhm.
it was addressed in the memo. Yeah, you'll see the precise language as we get into the proposed employment agreement. That's just a little bit down the road here in the process when we'll actually talk about that. But just wanted to kind of get the council oriented and be able to answer any questions, so that we're getting these things kind of hashed out early on, and we don't have to wait until we're in negotiations with the candidate, and then we've got people kind of not on the same page.
So would you need some of that in place prior to starting to advertise, or are you prepared?
Oh, no.
now to- Okay.
No, this is just
Okay.
in effort. The main thing that we need to have in place that is in the position profile is the salary range. The other items, we're just trying to give you as much chance to digest and think about these things and either become comfortable with them or propose something different. And we can kind of talk through that on some of the other items.
Brent, this is Steve Luce. I'm assuming that the last page of your memo where it says following the January 14 interview, that's actually supposed to be June 14?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Steve, yes, you have deciphered well. So yes. So, and actually it's supposed to be, that item should actually be June 16th. My apologies. I thought I had caught that. So I thought I had gotten that all updated. So yes, you are correct, Steve.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. So basically just the next thing on the council's plate here, I will be up there June 14th to select semifinalists from our applicants. And then I'll turn around and I'll be back on June 16th then for the virtual interviews. Basically what we'd propose is that we'd get 6 to 8 candidates, depending on where the council was at on that, to do Zoom interviews and then select the finalists. So apologies for that misstatement, but it is June 16th interview in that.
Okay, any other questions from the council? I think you're good to go. We'll send it off with positive energy. How about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm real, as I stated in person, I'm very optimistic. We're going to get some very good applicants on this. You're just, a great community and people know that. And, kind of a rare opportunity, hopefully, for, just, kind of the right type of person. So.
Okay.
Brent, just out of curiosity, is there a way uneven in terms of gender of city managers?
So most are male. There's been kind of a rising, I would say there are some super high quality female managers, and we certainly try to recruit those. I kind of shared in the one-on-one interviews that I did get that question, and I said that the Mark Jackson and I that have done some consulting together kind of looked at each other one time and figured out we were the female empowerment consultants, because we had just kind of like recruited like several ladies that were outstanding candidates to apply for a particular position. So certainly we'll try everything that we can possibly do to get good quality candidates. Yeah, females, they're a lot of things are the same with male candidates, but some things are different. Sometimes we struggle a little bit in this field to get ladies that are willing to assume, go to the manager role. There's super qualified ladies that could easily do it, that choose to stay in an assistant position because I think that they face potentially more criticism than a male, city manager does sometimes, which isn't fair. But it's unfortunately, a city manager takes plenty of criticism, and unfortunately, I think female city managers sometimes take a lot more unfair criticism.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? We'll go on.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And I apologize, I'm gonna have to step off now. I'm actually picked up a second council meeting to join tonight. So hope you guys have a great night, and thank you very much for all your input and support.
Okay,
Okay,
so Brent,
before-
before we go,
Yeah.
we do need to take action on this.
Yeah, actually, that is true. I do normally like to have it
Yeah.
just so it's got the council's formal.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
That's
you,
fine.
Wanda.
Okay, then I'm requesting approval.
I would move for approval of the city manager position profile and advertising plan with the correction that was noted earlier from Steve Luce.
I'll second that.
Moved by Chisholm, second by Johnson. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Chisholm,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Sittergren,
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Very good. Very
Thanks,
good.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Mark.
Brent.
Brent.
Consider approval of engineering agreement with Erdman Engineering for construction, staking, surveys, design questions, etc. Excuse me, for the 2021 Valley View Drive Street Improvement Project.
I'd make a motion for approval of the engineering agreement with Erdman.
Second.
Motion made by Hadley, second by Zittergruen. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Hadley,
Aye.
Sittergren,
Aye.
Chisholm.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Consider approval of engineering agreement with Erdman Engineering for construction, inspection, and staking services for East Main Street Improvement Project.
I move to approve.
Luce with second.
Moved by Zittergruen, second by Luce. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Sittergren,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisholm.
And as you said, we'll move 10 down below 15. Consider ordinance 1272, creating chapter 15.12 building code, third reading.
Luce would move the third reading for approval.
I'll second it.
Moved by Luce, seconded by
Johnson.
Johnson. Comment, I did get a comment from the public as far as the concern for costs at this time, especially due to the building costs. I know that other people have gotten it too, but I wanted to bring that forth just once again to make sure that people know that they're concerned about having to pay extra costs for building. Did you receive any other comments?
I've had
I-
similar concern from a couple constituents.
Any comments from the council concerning those type of statements?
I had some feedback regarding rental inspections, but nothing regarding the actual building construction code since the last meeting.
I'm sympathetic to the frustration that builders must be feeling tacking additional costs onto already high product costs. I'm sympathetic to it, but this is sort of a long-term solution for Decorah. It's in our best interest in the long term, and I'm really hoping that these distorted lumber prices are a short-term problem. So I don't think it's, worth holding up the long term for the short term.
Well, and to specify, when I actually went through the inspection process with the person who had the issue, we found that several of the things were safety issues. And, within a rental inspection process, broken windows and exposed wiring are things that we should be finding, and it is a benefit of the inspection process. And if broken windows and exposed wiring price you out of being a landlord, then you probably need to evaluate your pricing. So although I listened, those things actually only enforced my desire to have a building code.
Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Zittergrund.
Aye.
Chisholm.
Consider approval of application process for right-of-way dining sidewalk retail permit for use.
Microphone.
Uh,
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Steve. This is Steve Zittergren. I was just telling the mayor I had a phone call earlier from someone who hoped to be able to address the council on this issue, and I just wanted to make sure that that person had a chance to do it.
Okay. Okay. You sure may. Come on up.
My name is Jim Juve, and I'd like to address the council on
Hey, Jim, can you give us your address too, even though I know where you live?
503 Locust Road, Decorah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I know it's important. I don't have a problem with the people who own these businesses if they want to block off their area in front of their business. The problem I have is when you take a parking spot on a next business. The next business pays the taxes. They're in business to make a living like everybody else is. So if you take away their parking area, they want business to come in there too. You have certain businesses downtown, I'm not going to mention any names, but they go in and get coffee. Then they stand in the buildings next door, smoke the cigarettes and drink coffee, and then leave the cigarettes there. They also last year, on the one corner, used a city garbage can and filled it full of stuff where they should have had their own garbage cans out there. Not having the city come, and then all the papers were flying around town in Decorah. So I think, a little respect and responsibility goes a long, long way in the community. And, I was born and raised here in this community. I've lived here all my life. The only time I wasn't here, when I was in the military, I was at Checkpoint Charlie in Germany when Kennedy got shot. I had 7 brothers in the military, 2 in Vietnam, 4 in the States, and 2 in Germany. But, I've seen the town when the ma and pa restaurants were here. Everybody got along. Now the town is really divided. And I see people every day of all walks of life. And you know, you are the people. You are the people who should be bringing this community together instead of everybody fighting and picking and all that kind of stuff. Why can't we get along like we used to? We're a small community. We have a big heritage here. When I was here, all the Germans, they lived south. All the Norwegians lived in Genwood. The Irish were up in Bluffton, and everybody got along. Now it just seems like there's so much diversity and everything, and it's just like with this restaurant thing. You know, nobody talks to the neighbors anymore. Nobody's gone to the neighbor and say, would you mind if I took and did a parking over here? Nope. They just put it up and say, well, that's my deal and you. So I hope the council would take into consideration and say, yeah, if you want to block off your front where your property is, because when they did the main street down here, Bruning Rock Products did a wonderful job. They did it in a quick hurry. And all the property owners were assessed a certain amount of money to do that. So everybody should have a little say downtown, not a few that I want to block off this here so that I can better my business. I think it should be looked at. There's certain ways you can do things. I'm all for setting tables and chairs out on the street. But you drive through the community of Decorah, not all the time, but you go here on a weekend, you go up and down the streets in Decorah. And another thing that I see, and I'm just is you got the signs down there, no bicycles on the sidewalk. You better write it in Norwegian. They'd probably understand it better because they ride the bikes up and down the sidewalk anyway. But anyway, I hope you will take it into consideration and respect other businesses that are close to these restaurants and take and say, yeah, you can have this much space. And then think about the liability factor. I read that you want to take and put up some 2x4s or plywood to bring it up to the street. Well, what about when you got the plywood on the backside and somebody steps off? Are you going to put a fence on the backside so they don't step back like this and step down? Because that's going to be up 4 or 5 inches from the street. So there's a lot of things to look at. But thanks for your time. And I hope that you can make the right decision and try to make everybody happy. Thank you.
Tucson talk, Jim.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and speaking, Jim. I think too, with the permit, the sidewalk permit, there are details too that help assure that those sites would be taken care of by the owners and the thing.
I think that's right. Yeah, you know, the process that's spelled out in the permit is, you know, calls if it's raised above street level. I think it does call for also a barrier between the platform and the street. So that particular safety concern is certainly, you know, allayed. I know that, you know, our whole streets department did a lot of work getting this together this quickly, making sure it was done in a way that was safe and that examined what other communities had done to successfully deploy this. While I'm talking, I guess I'm talking now. I also wanted to say, I meant to ask last week, you know, sort of what public safety thought about it in the police department. I emailed the chief and he gave me some helpful comments about his support for the idea and also that he'd be appreciative of being added to the sign-off list for permit approval, just in keeping with how it works now for permits and other things. And I think that's a reasonable, you know, request. Is there a way to approve this with that addition or?
Yeah, I guess we can. If you want.
Can you turn your mic
for
on?
the police department to sign. That
Well,
can
it's
be
just a
done.
matter of adjusting the form.
Pardon?
It's just a matter of adjusting the form.
Yeah, it's just a matter of adjusting the form. So if that's what you want, that's what we'll do.
Any council member have a problem with that? It seems fine to me, so. And then I also think that we should discuss the issue of liability insurance. You know, Wanda and Jeremy contacted our insurer who mentioned that they'd like to see, what'd they say? Did they say 6 million or 12 million?
12 million.
They said 12 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
So,
that's what our limits are.
right. Now, other cities who do comparable things, like the city of Minneapolis only requires 1 million. I tried to get prices on the difference between those different levels. I know that the first $1 million of liability insurance is often, you know, in this case, it was going to be like $57 for the 6-month period. And Kelsey at Magpie wasn't able to get pricing on $12 million because her company maxed out at $2 million and said, if you want more than that, you'd have to buy a $12 million umbrella policy, which is a lot more expensive. And I don't know a lot about insurance. I don't know the details. I want to be thoughtful about balancing our, good desire to mitigate the city's risk to legal exposure, while also making sure that we're not setting such a high permit barrier that we're basically prohibiting it under the guise of permitting it. So I'm curious, how do we do that balance? My inclination right now is maybe we start by asking for 2 and then we revisit it after the year. Do other council members have thoughts about this?
Well, I have no issues with following the advice of people that are in the insurance business. If that's what they advise, that's probably where we should go. Minneapolis probably isn't a good example to be using right now, as to outdoor anything, period. I will say I am not in favor of this. Saturday at noon, when I went through downtown, there was 1 or 2 maximum parking places between, what is it now, Keparts and the co-op. And that included Washington and Winnebago. So people were down there. The restaurants that did have permits to go out and use the 3-foot dining did not try to take advantage of it in the nice weather. There were people sitting out in front of the co-op, and I've always used that one as my example. They've done it well, where they put out the 24-inch table. You can get 2 chairs around it. You can sit, you can eat, but you're not blocking the sidewalk in any way, shape, or form. I wish our other restaurants downtown would use that same example. And I would like to see that, something that they can take in. That way it's conformity up and down Water Street with clothing displays, with sandwich boards for advertising, and with dining. So that's where I stand on that one.
I'd be okay with 2 million, Steve.
Can you repeat that?
I would be okay with the suggested $2 million this year versus the 12 as indicated in the permit. As we are able to move forward, it still affords more than what we have now. But 12 million does seem, it does seem to be quite a lot. And although we as a city, they may recommend that we have $12 million. Did they say that we recommend that your restaurants have $12 million?
Yes.
Okay. Point taken, thanks.
I think it's reasonable to set the insurance limits at the start of this in a way that's similar to what we require of all the other events, parades, street closures, uses of the right of way, and explore. And then we should examine all of our liability limits. I know, Wanda, that's a goal you have for us, but just include this in that conversation. That's my lean right now. I'm curious, is it okay if I ask John to weigh in on that? All right.
Well, I would not disagree with the advice of your insurance carrier. I'll say when I saw the $12 million, I thought that was high. And my first question was, how much was that going to cost an employer or a business? There is an indemnification and hold harmless section in this permit, but that's only as good as the pockets of the applicant. If somebody were to sue the city because of something that happened in one of these parking spots, legally, they're responsible for protecting the city. However, that only goes so far as what kind of resources they have, whether that's through insurance or personal assets. Plus, a lot of these businesses are going to be some type of entity, LLC or something else. So there's probably limits there as well. So there's, I think it's a multi-step process. You have indemnification, you have insurance, you have reasonable safety precautions you put in place to try to protect the city. But ultimately, you know, if somebody were to get hurt, they're going to look for the deep pockets. And of course, that's the city. And you have to take into consideration what your insurance carrier has recommended and what risk you're willing to the city's willing to bear.
And I was not suggesting that the city lower their limits from $12 million.
No, and that's not what I'm suggesting here, but what you require of the applicant.
This is maybe a question I could have gotten an answer to earlier. I'm sorry about not asking. Like, I'm just curious why this is a special case compared to, say, a city park where obviously the city's taking on a certain amount of legal risk for something going wrong at a playground. Or why do we not have to have insurance on parking spots in the right of way when people use them to park where accidents often happen? Could you explain to me how that's different?
Well, I mean, there are, I've never thought of it that way, but there are some related issues there. But here we are essentially handing over a public space for somebody else to run their business. And we're not, we still own it. We're just letting them use it. And hopefully, we're not technically a landlord, but as a landlord, you want your tenant to be fully responsible for anything that happens there. But as much as we can, we want to shield and wall ourselves off from any responsibility of the actions of the so-called tenant, being the business that's using it. But it's not a lease, you know, it's still public right of way. The public can go through there, I suppose, in some way. It's open, you know, what's going to be the situation at night when the business closes? This is still going to be something that's accessible to people. So those are, that's why it's a little different from the park or just a regular parking space. This parking area, it was not designed originally for outdoor dining. We're modifying it. And those are things we also have to take into consideration. A park's designed to invite families, kids, the public to play in. That's not what a parking spot was originally designed for. So that's why I think we do have to be a little bit more cautious with it.
This space originally was designed for parking horses, but I don't think anyone.
Yeah, well.
Well, that might be going back a ways.
You probably needed a bigger parking spot for
I don't
horses,
think it's.
though.
I think my ignorance is on display there. I don't think you park horses. I think there's something else that happens. All right.
I think we need to do as much as we can to help out restaurants in general. They're very vulnerable right now. And I look back to the 2020 downtown Decorah Pulse poll, where over 90% of people who took it said that dining was the #1 reason that they came to downtown Decorah. Now that should help other businesses. If that's, no offense to any other businesses, but maybe they're a secondary or tertiary thing that people are coming downtown for. So I think if we're getting people downtown dining, then they're going to go to those other stores. And I think it's going to help other businesses. So I think we should do everything we can to help the dining industry in general.
I think too, you know, when we just talked about it last time, when I talked about the fact of bringing something forth in that quick a fashion. You're also looking at maybe this year doing, you know, the test and using this and then knowing how we need to adjust it and change it as we go forth too.
I think having that experiment of experimentality is really healthy for Decorah. We can try it. We can see if it makes downtown feel more vibrant, more walkable, more attractive to visitors, tourists. The businesses next to these parklets might see their business pick up and then have fewer reservations going forward. I understand that taking up to potentially 10% of the parking spaces on Water Street is a lot, sounds like a lot to people. You know, it might mean you sometimes have to walk another block. But I think that conversation we should have soon, which is how we can
Mhm.
change the way that we manage and signal and control parking in downtown Decorah. Because I think with some very cheap and simple tweaks, we could really improve the parking scenario downtown for people who find it frustrating.
Well, I think, looking and evaluating like North Alley parking. um, I've always, I've always talked about having the cars off the street by Hively because it's too tight. But we've also got Folkadal parking lot. And how do we encourage people to use those places as well? So that's a discussion that would be worth having.
I will say that I got a lot of feedback because I sought it out on this issue. I talked to lots of downtown restaurants who are very excited about what they think it'll do for their bottom line. I talked to adjacent businesses who are either neutral or in favor of. They mentioned parking concerns. I got some emails from people that were really supportive. I even discussed this with a group of people who come to Decorah for the beer scene here, the tourism dollars, and they thought that this was just an outstanding idea that would really do a lot for that draw. And I think that those are all really important considerations to hold in tension with some of the criticisms of this plan. So I think we ought to try it for the summer. Can I make a motion at this time, or should someone?
Can I just
Yeah.
ask a question quick first? So I just wonder, right now this proposes, those 11 spaces.
Mhm.
And then if they're not all taken and all called for by June 30th, that somebody can ask for a second spot. So just out of respect for Mr. Juve's comments about, being respectful of, somebody else's spot in front of their store, do you want to leave this at 11 spaces? Or do you want to just, I shouldn't say that, do you want to just limit everyone to just one space? Maybe that's my bigger question.
I think I like the way that the plan provisionally limits everyone to one space, and then we can discuss it as a council if we want to expand it and consider, that concern more fully then. It may be that it works just fine the way it is and we don't want to mess with it, or it may be that, people come around and say, yeah, it'd be nice, this thing at T-Box is nice, but it'd be better if they had another spot. Let's see how it goes. That's kind of my perception.
I do have one other question too with this. Like Nordic Fest is planning on going on this year. Will these be taken out for Nordic Fest since they put their huts right out there?
Not according to the way the plan's currently written.
So then if they're going to be in the Nordic Fest special event zone, are they going to be paying the royalties to Nordic Fest for their gross sales for that weekend?
I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know that we have any power to tell private businesses doing business that they have to contribute to a special fund. We could maybe encourage it.
Or how about they just take them out then that weekend?
I think that the more semi-permanent these are, the more attractive they'll be for the city, the less of an eyesore they'll be, and the more of a draw they'll be for foot traffic. And while I can appreciate that, that supporters of Nordic Fest, and I'm one of them, will find that to be quite a significant change. I think if done well, these things will integrate very well into the culture that Nordic Fest is trying to build, of people socializing, recreating, and dining together.
But if they're in the way of the food huts that Nordic Fest puts up, because there's specific locations where they go because of the power poles, what are you going to do then?
I know a lot of the people in the Nordic Fest leadership, and I have faith that they're going to figure it out.
Well, and the other thing is, that's when you're working on a trial basis, that's what you look at. And if it comes to that, then we have that discussion and say, we really actually need that power in order to support the Nordic Fest. It's kind of hard to know too, if we don't know exactly what the Nordic Fest is planning to do for the fest, or where they're planning to have their stuff as well. But I appreciate, understand what you're saying, and I think some of those are going to take some negotiating or conversation to make sure that it meets the needs for both.
I mean, I think maybe, Jeremy, you're on, I think I see you. Maybe this is a note for us to make is once we have a sense of where these parklets are going to be, we need to communicate with Nordic Fest to make sure that that we can all work well together.
Okay, so I don't mean to be dense here, but when you talk about, back to the 11 spots that we talked about, right now, it says after June 30th, they can apply for a second spot. Shall we take that out of this process for now?
I think leave it in and then we just don't approve the second spot if that's the direction we decide to go. This gives us flexibility though, and I think that that's good.
Okay, I just.
Is that okay with you? I mean, in terms of doing it
I
that way?
just want to make sure that we are handling it administratively properly then. So
And
maybe
I-
we should put some language in there saying a second permit will have to go to council for further consideration or something.
I think that'd be great. I think if you want to bring it to us so that we're on the hook for that decision when the time comes, then that would give some people who voiced opposition another chance to make their case.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure that we're doing what you want us to do.
Art, can we make a motion then? Is that okay? All right, then I move that we approve the application process for right-of-way dining and sidewalk retailing permit for use with the following changes: changing the liability limits to $2 million, changing the language about a second space to requiring council approval, and adding the chief of police's sign off to the list of sign-offs.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Zittergrun, seconded by Johnson. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to ask, what section am I missing that talks about who's in charge of taking care of the trash?
I think, was it not stated that that's actually part of the restaurant's responsibility to work with that?
That's what I'm asking, is where is that? I missed it.
Okay. That would be,
Well, Steve, if it's not in there specifically, we'll put it in there.
yeah.
And this is Jeremy. It is not addressed, Steve, so we can add that.
No, I appreciate your comment on that, Steve, because that's really important, that they're responsible for making sure that area is kept clean.
Also, can we
I
make
get
sure that Nordic Fest board gets this
Yeah.
ASAP so they have a couple months to plan ahead?
I'll send that email.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none? Roll call?
Zittergrun,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisholm,
No.
Carlson,
Aye.
Luce,
No?
Luce. Motion carried.
Okay. I love hay fever season. It happens every year about this time. Okay. Say, Andy, how'd you like to read 13?
13. Discussion and action on revoking curbside pickup spot privileges in an effort to be sensitive to concerns regarding use of parking spaces for outdoor dining. I guess I don't need to read that whole section, do I? Those are just the notes. My bad. Maybe I can't
That's okay.
read that.
Okay.
I move to approve.
This is discussion and action on revoking curbside pickup spot privileges. And that motion has been made by Steve Zittergrun,
Second.
second by Chisholm. Discussion.
I just curious if we had a timeline for when, I mean, are we just going to say when we start the parklet thing, or what? What's the timeline for telling people to get their cones off the road?
I guess I would just do it immediately.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I was just curious what the
Yeah.
plan was.
Because I think as soon as people can get their parklets up, they will.
Right,
I think
right.
it's-
I mean, this was part of the conversation around the parklets that we had at the Betterment Committee, that while there still may be some cause for people to have access to being able to park right in front of an establishment and get takeout or carry out, typically that's not a great way to use parking spots. Parking spots downtown should be for whoever wants them, and not, have dibs called on them by businesses. And I think that that this is also a nice way to sort of indicate to people who are frustrated about the parklets using some spaces for an alternative purpose during the summer season, to say, look, we are certainly maybe taking away some for restaurants, but we're going to be freeing up a lot more parking spots that currently are being held or reserved. So I think that time of emergency where we have to have that parking spot reserve thing happening, I think that time's over.
Well, it was purely understandable during the pandemic with the lowering of the numbers, increase of vaccinations. I can understand the change, but that's just a comment. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call?
Sittergren,
Aye.
Chisholm. Hadley. Hadley.
No, I would like to see it change in conjunction with the mask mandate.
Carlson.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Luce.
No.
Well, that's 3-3. Motion fails.
Okay. Okay, that motion failed. Okay. Discussion on updating code sections which refer to insurance limits by removing and setting limits by resolution. Get some background on that, Wanda?
Okay, this goes back to, currently there's numerous sections of the code that refer to that $1 million that we've been talking about. And in 2021, that $1 million is certainly not adequate according to our insurance company. And I mean, it's been that much since I was here. So it's been that way for 42 years. And so I think in 2021, it's maybe time to think about raising that. And so I would propose that we take a look at that, remove any of that language from the actual code so we can set those limits by resolution from time to time without going through the codification process. But then to be able to just come back to you with a recommendation on that. And note those sections, because those sections will have to be recodified, so they will have to be taken out by ordinance, but then reestablished by resolution. So we're just wanting to have a kind of a consensus and information from the council on, would you like us to go ahead and work on that? And can we go ahead and work on that and bring a recommendation back to you?
So this is, you're seeking thoughts and consideration from the council. No action to be taken at this time.
Right, so there's no action tonight other than, shall we go ahead and do that?
I think it's an important process. I've heard that it's been more than 40 years since we've changed from 1 million, and I mean, $1 million isn't what it was 40 years ago. So I definitely approve this. I would like to see, not just numbers, but also it would have been helpful tonight to have, information about what the change in liability protection would cost the applicant. So I mean, when this comes before the council, I'd really appreciate it if I knew, like how much more would it cost the farmer's market to get a permit? How much more would it cost a parade to get a permit? Just so I know what we're voting for in terms of what it's costing our citizens.
Mhm. Okay, so, I mean, there are some things that go on that don't require a certificate of insurance, listing the city as an additional insured. A parade permit would be one of them. We don't require that for a parade permit. But if you're doing any work within the right of way, or if you've got equipment that you're putting in the right of way because you're doing work on your building, like I said, a dumpster was one of those things. So there's numerous things like that that we do require that certificate of insurance for, but it's certainly not everything that goes on in the city. So, but we'll get you some information accordingly.
I guess I'm just asking for the price changes that we'd be imposing on people, just so I know. I mean, it sounds like we have to do it, but I just want to know what we're doing.
I would recommend Steve Zittergren's committee and the community betterment take a look at it because it does affect neighborhoods. Because events can be in any neighborhood, and parking, a dumpster can be in any neighborhood, or
Mhm.
equipment can be stored in any neighborhood. So I would see the Community Betterment Committee taking it and coming back with a recommendation.
That is a valuable sort of idea, Ross. But these things all take place on streets, and so I'm wondering if,
Streets will address the parking management issue if Betterment looks at insurance.
Oh, you'd be able to partner that.
we got a
way.
deal.
I
All
guess
right.
I'd like to know about what some towns of comparable size too. Like where are they at? Are they at this 12 million threshold or are they still at 1 million too? So if we could maybe get a few comps from
Yeah, using
other
our
towns.
comp list that we have.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have to speak to the approving the idea of doing it by resolution as opposed to codification.
Uh, I see. I know what you're saying. Sorry, I was thinking on the top of my head.
And that sort of thing would work. We just take out 1 million, whatever it appeared, and say in an amount specified by council resolution or something like that. Is that how that happens? Okay, all right.
And the different, and I wouldn't say that absolutely everything has to have that same $12 million limit. But if you're doing a major improvement project on a sidewalk on a building and you've got the entire sidewalk blocked off in front of that building and, you know, there's a danger of bricks falling and stuff like that. I mean, I think we all have a responsibility to protect the city and to do what we can for that too. So, I mean, that's why we're bringing this forward to you, so.
Okay, so we'll look forward to getting more clarity on that and having something come forth through the use of the Betterment Committee and some through the Street Department Committee. Anything else on that?
Yeah, my question is, does any of the other council think it's wise to go to resolution?
That's versus going through the code.
Correct.
Okay,
I
so we
thought
have,
that was the question in front of us.
well, yeah, that's one of them. And I will say we have done this in other things. We've been systematically taking reference to charges and fees out of the code and setting them by resolution so that they can be changed from time to time with a more simple process than codification. Now, we still have water and sewer rates set by code, and I wouldn't propose to change that. But all our building fees, that type of thing, it's all set by resolution. Variances, compliance certificates, water and sewer fees, water tapping fees. Those things, they're all set now by resolution rather than being codified.
Okay.
We've been systematically doing that these past years.
Yeah, I approve of that element of the plan along with all the other things you're proposing here. I appreciate the initiative you're showing. Thanks.
Does that answer your question, Steve?
Steve answered my question. I didn't hear any other council persons.
Anybody else?
I haven't had enough time to think about it, Steve. I saw it in Dropbox, but without having Wanda's explanation tonight was good, but I just haven't had time to think about it. So I'll look forward to discussing it in committee and bringing it back.
I'm with Ross. That sounds like a good
Okay.
plan.
It can be part of the discussion as you're looking to see what you can be bringing forth too. Okay. Discussion and possible action on establishing communicating benchmarks for mask mandate replication.
I know I'm talking a lot tonight. It's been a busy week for me. Betterment Committee, you know, I should make sure never to have meetings again because it results in a lot of work. Yeah. Oops. So this is a conversation we've had several times at council. I know that Anyway, this is follow up on the last conversation we had about masks in the Betterment Committee meeting a month or so ago. The situation has yet again changed. It's a rapidly changing situation. We're under 20 positive tests in the last 14 days for the first time in a long time. Our vaccination rate is good, and hopefully people who are on the fence or wavering get their vaccines, because they're the way out of this. That's the way back to things being as normal as they can be. But this agenda item was added to the agenda by Emily and I'm sorry she couldn't be here tonight, but because we thought it was time for the council to discuss this again. And I have specific recommendations, because I think as a measure and matter of good leadership, we owe it to the people of Decorah that to tell them exactly when and for what benchmarks we're looking for to remove the mask mandate. It's an emergency mandate, and I think that we need to make sure that it's not outliving the emergency that it's protecting us from. And so what the question is what are the benchmarks? I have some actual proposals, but I'm willing to be reasonable and certainly flexible on what, but I just think we ought to, as a council, communicate with our public what's our end line here. I think I sort of have guesses about where some of you stand, but I think it's important. I think we all it'd be good if we all said something. I have one specific idea that I saw the government of Michigan, who've been praised in a lot of corners by people for their leadership thus far during the pandemic, and in the governor of Michigan said that the mask mandate in the state will be lifted once 70% of adults have received their first vaccine, plus 14 days. I looked at our numbers locally for Winneshiek County, and you can bear with me here a little bit. There are about 17,000 people who are eligible for the vaccine in Winneshiek County. 9,443 have gotten their first shot. So 56% of people who are eligible have gotten at least one shot. And there might be a few more that aren't in those numbers who went across state lines to get vaccinated. So it might be better than 56%. All of us probably know people who went to Minnesota to get their vaccine. So if we want to get that number to 70, based on census estimates of our current population and our current today, that would require about 12,000 people having gotten their first shot. 11,900 is the real number. So that would be 2,457 more people. And I propose tying the removal of all of our emergency mandate, the mask mandate. I propose tying the revocation of the mandate to that 70% target vaccination number, because the vaccines work and they're the way out of this. And so once we get to that number, based on the experience of states that are farther ahead of us, and based on the experience of Israel and the UK, where more people have had their first shot, coronavirus spread will be severely diminished, and it will be safe for us to lift the mask mandate, which is not the same as saying you shouldn't mask, but I no longer think that an emergency mandate would be justified. So that's my proposal, is at 70%. But I'd consider, if you wanted to say maybe below 10 people in a 14-day threshold, or you might say, I think we should lift it now. I think we're there. So I'm just curious where people are at or what they think we should do.
Noting that the amount of tourism that Decorah receives, it seems to me we need to think beyond just Winneshiek County in terms of a percentage or what. If you want to talk 70% of Iowans vaccinated, I would be a lot happier with that as opposed to our little county, because of the number of people from outside our county who come in.
I hear you there. And if budging to 70% of Iowans is what it takes to get the council to take action and communicate to the public, I'll go with you. But I think that's too high of a threshold, personally.
I agree. I think Iowa will, in the many rural areas, will be slow to pick this up, or maybe they never will. I guess my only concern about the 70% is, I wonder about the accuracy of our numbers. And how many do we know? How many people at Luther have it? How many students do we know? How many? and students are going to be leaving in 2 weeks. And, do we really know, what our percentage is? Because in my building where I work, when I have 25 people, everybody, practically everyone has one dose, save 1 or 2 people. So at least in my area of work, people have gotten vaccinated. I don't know about all across campus, and maybe some of you have some anecdotal evidence too. I mean, those of you who work in schools, how many teachers took it up? How many public officials here in this building have taken it up? Do we know, and are these people being counted by our public health system? I really hope that our public health will take a real close look at our numbers and try to dig pretty deep to find out really where are we at. I suspect we're farther along than we think.
I did listen to Krista Vandenbrink's comment to the Board of Supervisors. She had stated that 46% of the county had been vaccinated. She talked about that they're going to be assisting up at Luther for doses so that the students can be vaccinated before they go home. That's Johnson & Johnson. That she says that's an issue at times for a decrease in people who want to get the vaccine. There's a decrease in the number that maybe have got a first one, but they maybe don't want to get the second one. So the target for vaccinations is just kind of what you said. It's a little bit of a moving thing. People can, one of the things is encourage people now to get the vaccines in order to be able to take the masks off. So I think the public health is kind of indicative of what you're talking about.
Do we have any high school students who, the 16-year-olds and up, have we seen an uptick in their getting the Pfizer vaccine because they are
Well, I don't know
eligible
about the
for it?
vaccine. We don't have any active cases though right now at the high school.
We don't have any.
Plus, don't they have to be 18 to get the
16
vaccine?
for
Okay.
Pfizer.
Okay.
All the others are 18, but 16
Okay.
for the Pfizer.
Okay, your workforce, Kirk, you asked about like city staff. So on 2 different occasions, I sent out emails to all the departments that the vaccine was going to be available at this location or that location. And so anyone who hasn't had it and wants to get it should call. And as I understand it, almost everyone has had the shots from your workforce, except maybe save a few people who, for medical reasons, were maybe advised by their doctor not to, or for medical reasons decided that they just don't want to.
Right.
But otherwise, I think that the vast majority of your employees have had the shots.
Good.
Large majority, obviously, the teachers got it too as well, a month and a half ago.
So I guess what I'm saying though is I'm a little concerned that if we set a 70% threshold, we may be there and not even know it for weeks. And I worry about our numbers and our count.
So I talked to a few physicians from, and spoiler alert, one of them is always my wife, at Winneshiek Medical Center the other night, and they agree that there are probably a lot of not counted vaccinations in the county. That even people who let their healthcare provider know that they have gotten vaccinated out of state, there's a process in place to get that added to the reporting to the state of Iowa. And they're just not confident that it's happening right now. So they're looking into how they can maybe capture more of those and get them added to our numbers. And hopefully that bears some fruit. But this doesn't say we're not going to lift it until we get to 70. I mean, we could always just choose to lift it even if we stall out at 66 or something. If the case counts decline, we can, it's up to us, So I guess I'm setting this not as a necessary condition, but a sufficient condition.
I did,
That's my perspective.
I did go on to the CDC and wanted to put on the Dropbox the most recent update choosing safe activities as far as masks are concerned, just for your information. If I remember right, did we not at the last city council meeting talk about visiting again in June, first meeting in June, or was that? But we did not set any type of guideline.
I don't think we've set any benchmark for
Okay,
indicating to the community what our plan is. And I'll just keep bringing it because I actually do think it's a matter of justice. I think there's a deep incongruity at work where we're passing a law that for the most part is being ignored by the people who are choosing not to be vaccinated. And we're continuing to have this law in place to protect them from their own choices. And I mean, personally, that seems to me to be asking a lot of our community members who've done the right thing.
Didn't the CDC just change, they don't have to have masks on the outside? I mean, you started with that. I mean, school's going to be out, like Luther said, Kirk said 2 weeks, 3 weeks in Decorah schools are out. So you have a lot of people vaccinated. When are you going to give them kind of a plus to doing the right thing? That's why I think a lot of people are having trouble going to get the shot because the CDC keeps making changes to everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us that have been vaccinated, what's the benefit? They keep telling everybody else to go get vaccinated, but they're still requiring masks.
do you want to pass on to the people that are on Zoom what he just said?
Oh, did I have my mic off?
No, she doesn't.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
He doesn't have a mic.
I'm sorry, of course. So Chopper mentioned just now that that given that the CDC's guidelines for outdoor masking recently were eased, I don't think they were completely eliminated because they still say if spacing isn't possible, if you're in a crowded outdoor venue, masking is probably a good idea. But given that they just eased, perhaps an incremental approach would be a way to go about this, where we lift the outdoor part of our mandate first. Is that the implication of what you were maybe? Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm fine acting immediately on that. I certainly would, but I'm, and to indicate to people that, again, this isn't if you get your vaccine, we will reward you by lifting the mask mandate. It's if everyone gets their vaccine, we won't need the mask mandate, and we're willing to commit to that. That's just how it works. This is the way out. So.
And then, but they're stating too that you would put that benchmark at 70%. Is that correct?
I'm just following the government of Michigan's advice because the CDC has not told local communities whether they should have a mask mandate or when they should lift it. There's no government advice, so I'm following Michigan's very bright idea.
And maybe we should rephrase it from having a benchmark to having a target.
Yeah, sure.
So that if we get, if we get close, we get, I think if we get close, we're probably over.
Is there any way we can get more targeted information with regards to Decorah as opposed to Winnebago County? Is there any, has public health said anything that could, because the
Right.
issue though, that I'm also thinking of just anecdotally is that my parents, step-parents, aunts and uncles who are all older went and got it somewhere else right at the beginning. A lot of individuals I know, and Decorah's an affluent community where people can afford to do that, where they can get up and drive to Cedar Rapids. My mom went to La Crosse.
Now, as long as they got it, I'm told as long as they got it within the state of Iowa, they should be counted in our numbers.
That's true.
However, if they did go to La Crosse, or if they did go
Rochester.
to Minnesota, or if they were in Arizona this winter, or if they were in Florida or Georgia and got it, they won't be counted here.
Right, and that's an issue.
I think that kind of goes back to Kurt's comment about it's very hard to know number-wise what's going on.
And I commend Steve for trying to give them, or give at least an idea to people of when we're going to get rid of it. Just my preference would be to at least wait until Luther and school is out. Just thinking things have gone so well at both the publics and private schools in Decorah that I don't know why we would mess with that at this point. To just let the school year finish out, and then I think I'd be more apt or open to getting rid of it.
And I think we
then-
should keep this on the agenda for every meeting going forward so that we can act on it as quickly as possible when we feel we've gotten close enough to that 70% mark that we feel safe or safe enough.
Well, you put out the target of 70%. You can check it bring it back again on the 17th or whatever date it is.
And in the
look at
mean-
it again.
Yeah, and in the meantime too, I would like to, ask our public health officials to, do some digging and find out, where are we? What are the actual numbers? I know it's a big task.
To be clear, even if we officially adopted a target for vaccinations and tied it to the revocation of the mask mandate tonight, I just don't see us getting another 14% in the next couple of weeks before the schools are out or whatever. So I'm not concerned about the timing of that particular aspect of the timing. We're still a couple of weeks away if everyone cooperates.
So is the, go ahead.
As such, I would be supportive of adopting the 70% as a metric tonight, as a push goal for the county to repeal the mandate. Sure. I will make a motion.
Well, I was just going to say, we're probably at 70% of the population with antibodies because there's a lot of folks that have had COVID, have the antibodies, which is all the vaccine is getting into you. So when you're tying everything back to the vaccine, you're not giving credit for those that came through the illness and for whatever reason now they aren't getting the vaccine right away. So we're probably at 70%. I would be more than comfortable to drop the mandate immediately and just keep on with the CDC recommendations of wearing masks when you're in crowds of strangers, not family. And if you can't maintain the 3-foot distance that they've now said. Especially with, like you said, with summer coming up. And what we do here does not impact the school. They can still make their own rules.
I know, I'm well aware.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I mean, I'll continue to wear masks in crowded rooms until there's zero community spread or when I'm around tourists or whatever. But I just want to distinguish between what's a good idea and what we should legally require. Do you want to do a motion or not?
Yes, sure. I'll make a motion that we discontinue the mask mandate when Winnebago County hits a 70% vaccination rate.
I'll second it. Wait, hold on. 70% of eligible adults.
Friendly amendment by Stephen.
And do you want to just put a number on it of 12,000 or 11,900?
Sure.
Okay.
And just to remind you, this is an ordinance, so officially, if you go to truly amend the ordinance, we're going to have to do it by the regular ordinance amendment process.
And
Isn't it appropriate that maybe they set the level now, but when you get there, yes.
Yes.
then
It
has to
triggers
be
the
done by-
action.
Yes,
So
yes.
I think-
Nothing wrong with what you're doing tonight. I just
Yes.
wanted to remind you of that.
no, the spirit of this is that we intend to adopt a resolution or a state of the will of the council, basically saying this is a target at which we are going to go through the process to get rid of the ordinance, to lift the ordinance. I seconded it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm wondering if we could start some sort of reporting system maybe for people to report if they've had the vaccine and probably aren't counted in our county count,
I'd like to see us come up with a press release that encourages people who've been vaccinated out of state to contact their healthcare provider. And I'll follow up with the healthcare providers to try to make sure there's a way to get them reported. The sort of the problem with that is that the healthcare providers won't simply just take people at their word. They need to apparently coordinate with a nurse who has access to the same system in the state and make sure that these people have actually received their vaccines.
so the cards wouldn't work that they've been signed off on.
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. But I do think that there's a good missing 5% there. I've helped personally dozens to hundreds of people get vaccines in Minnesota.
And that's why I wonder if 70 is too high. I mean, is 65 more reasonable? We think that there's probably a 5%.
Well, you have
I mean,
currently you have a motion.
Would you be, well, we can discuss though, right? Would you be
Right.
more comfortable with 65? Because if you would vote for 65, I'll drop and remove. Randy,
I think that sounds
65?
reasonable.
60.
Where are we now?
We're at 70.
No,
Oh,
we're,
40. I had 46.
I
He
thought we
had
said
50.
Going.
So
We are at just to be clear about the difference between 46 and 56, 46% of the entire county, 56% of eligible adults as estimated by me using census data. So I mean, we're talking about eligible adults here.
Stephen, since you have the data in front of you, I'm going to I will withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Okay. Did we do that correctly then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn.
I'd like to make a motion. I know this is going to really come as a shock to you.
Okay.
You have to withdraw his second.
No, remember making.
Well, that's the other thing I worry about, Chopper.
Right.
Okay.
The other, and I think that, could you make that comment since he can't,
Chopper said it seems like we're making this for the county.
right? It
And
can't
I also,
be,
that's why I asked if we could get more targeted data with regards to Decorah proper, because, you know, are we trying to dangle a carrot in front of Austin and Castalia?
no,
or-
you can't do that.
You know, and so
I think that a
that's why I
lot
don't
of the
want to tether
data,
ourselves to,
the data all the
they're
way
good people.
along has not been broken down by city. It's
We are-
just been broken down by county.
right, I understand that. And that's why I was asking if there's any way to get more targeted data.
Unless you want to go start knocking on doors, I don't think there is. And I'm serious, this is the most granular data that I think we get.
But I think that is a piece that
Yep.
when you're saying that, you're really are only speaking about the city. You can't speak for. the
But we
county.
have to use the metrics that we can be provided with.
Yep.
And we have to, I would just make the comment that we are a hub for the county. And so the county does reflect the overall public health of the community. Our public health,
It does.
the state public health, the tool that we have for us is Winnebago County Public Health, which we operate under. So I think although we are mentioning county numbers, it's the only metric and it's the function of the state under which we operate. So,
But we're still a minority of the county. I mean, we're still only 8,000 people out of 20,000. so-
sure, but it's still a reflection.
True.
Okay, so have we had a motion?
No, I'd like to make a
made?
motion. I move that the council expresses to the community its intention to revoke the mask mandate following 11,000 adults in the county getting vaccinated. That just as an explainer for someone considering a second, that's 65% plus or minus about 40 people.
And Mayor, what did Krista say today? It was 46%?
That's what she was talking, yeah.
Of the entire county.
And that's entire county though.
If I can add something, Krista also said another 1,600 had their first shot. So
Right.
with that, it is 56, which is what's.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, so we have a motion. Did I not hear a second?
Maybe-
I'll second it.
A second by Johnson. Any further discussion?
Can you read the motion back, please?
That's a wonderful idea. You read the motion back.
Okay, motion by Zittergrun to move that we express our intention to lift the mandate following 11,000 adults being vaccinated. And that, it kind of reflects 65% vaccination rate.
What's our number at right now?
Our number right now is 9,443. That's as of this afternoon.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Zittergrun,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Luce,
No.
Carlson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisel.
Okay, motion passes. And I'll look forward to hearing more reports at the next meeting.
Can I ask you just a follow-up question related? Is there a way that we can issue a press release, or how do we communicate this? I mean, obviously, he's in the room, but I want to make sure that our messaging is clear on this.
Well, and the other thing too is that Wanda will be doing a interview with Darren Swenson as well.
Yes.
She'll be doing
Tomorrow.
that tomorrow or the next
Great.
day.
He's like the Walter Cronkite of Northeast Iowa.
But could we also put something on the website,
Good,
a press release,
We can.
yeah.
Facebook website? Yep, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, let me look at my list. Okay, that was 15. I think the process for moving into a closed session, John, do we need a motion to move into a closed session?
Yes, we will need a motion to move into closed session. There's a motion basically dictated in the background notes. If the council so chooses to discuss the building buyout number with Fox and Coon Club pursuant to the lease with Fox and Coon Club, when the city of Decorah terminated the lease, the parties need to come to an agreement on the city basically reimbursing the Fox and Coon Club for the building, which they put up many, many years ago, but that was part of the lease agreement. And there's a process in the lease where the parties are supposed to negotiate in good faith to come up with that number. If they don't come up with that number, each party is to get an appraisal and then agree upon a third appraiser and average those three appraisals. At this time, we have the city of Decorah got an appraisal back in 2018 when there was some talk about whether or not the city wanted to develop this property. We did not get a subsequent appraisal. Fox and Coon Club did get an appraisal in January, and that's in your Dropbox. And Chad Bird, and then after he left, myself have had conversations with Fox and Coon Club, trying to come to an agreement on a buyout number. And we're close, but we got to get city council input and on where you want to go with this.
Okay, so I need a motion to go into
I
closed
would move to
session.
go into closed session.
Second.
And sorry, if I could have you state the reason that's in the background notes.
Pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 21.51J to discuss the purchase of real estate where it's premature. to discuss in public.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Chisel.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce. Luce. Luce.
He's mouthing aye.
We're getting a thumbs up.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Okay, so for those people that are in the room, we will be stepping out. And when we've completed, we will come back in, resume, and finish the council meeting.
Can Steve call in?
We could call him, can't we, from the?
Well, I suppose
phone
we can
now?
call him and put him on speakerphone.
Yeah.
John, I just wanted to know how.
Yeah, he'll have to be on speakerphone, and he's got to be able to be recorded on the device.
Okay, just, I think your council rules, didn't your council rules say you got to be present for a closed session?
Yes.
I think council
I
rules say
think
that.
that was the case
Yep,
back,
yep.
yeah.
After somebody was out of town and we didn't know
Let-
who else.
Yeah,
Let
I
me,
think
let-
it does.
But in the
I think
meantime,
I've
too,
been
we've been
corrected.
doing meetings
Yep.
on Zoom, so.
yeah, I think it does say that.
Does the governor's proclamation for emergencies dictate anything about electronic during closed session?
No.
Okay.
Besides follow your council rules and proper notice procedures.
Okay, that being said,
Yep.
we will return.
Not back in half an hour, call me.
Okay. John, we have to go back into session? We can just automatically move on.
Can we pick up where we left off, or do we need to go back into?
You
The
just
regular.
voted to come out of closed session already.
Okay. All right, so consider approval of purchase agreement for Fox and Coon Club. Should have a little bit of background. Only an amount, I think.
Okay,
Oh,
well, I think we
no.
kind of went through the
Wait, we
background
need- we
before,
would have
so
a-
if I think
somebody
you
would
could
have to
just,
make a motion.
want to just make a motion.
Don't look at me.
Hadley would make a motion to approve the sale of the Fox and Coon Club property for 100 and, no? The buyout, sorry. I'm actually going to read it then.
Should we make sure Steve's back?
Oh,
Steve, are you back? Steve
Can you
Luce?
unmute him?
I'm here.
Okay.
And it's to reimburse the Fox and Coon Club for the building. So buyout of the building for Fox and Coon Club.
Hadley would make a motion to approve the buyout agreement with the Fox and Coon Club at the consideration of $117,000.
Johnson will second.
motion made by Hadley, seconded by Johnson. Discussion? Roll call.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisholm,
Aye.
Zittergrun,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Carlson.
No.
Motion carries. Okay. Then we have Board and Commission. Reappointment of Haley Jackson and Mark Branham to Historic Preservation Commission. I think we've done this individually, correct?
No, they're on the same board.
Okay. No, I meant between A, B, and C.
Yeah, you have been.
Okay, so I need a motion for reappointment of Haley Jackson, Mark Branham to Historic Preservation Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Thank you for serving.
Okay. Roll call?
Chisholm,
Aye.
Zittergrun, Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Approve appointment of Reginald Larson, Larry Wilson, and Tom Marquardt to the MEU Task Force. I know with this that they had, once again, went through many people that they talked to. So I'm looking for approval of these three people to the MEU Task Force.
By that, you mean they had a lot of applicants, or they couldn't?
No, they couldn't find
Good
applicants.
to know.
I move that we approve these three members to the MEU task force.
Who's the second?
Moved by Zittergrun, seconded by Luce. Roll call?
Zittergrun,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Chisholm,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Okay, we still have two openings on the Civil Service Commission. I'm looking for that. Then we have city manager and department head reports.
Okay. Got a little note here. All right, we have supplements for the code books. So anyone that would like help with your supplement for your code book, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just send them out and you can do them yourselves. The house at 701 Maple, asbestos abatement will be taking place May 10th. And after that, we will move forward with demolition of the building. Just maybe so everyone knows, we did not get any RFPs for development of the property. So we'll have to maybe have discussions about what to do moving forward if we want to just put it on the market, see what happens. So, but we will be moving forward with that process. And on Friday, I participated with a league session on the American Recovery Act money that we are supposedly going to be getting. And this is a moving target, and they were very quick to say that this kind of changes every day. Probably by May 10th, they will have the final rules on the use of this money. But as of Friday, uses of this money included COVID-19 response and mitigation, revenue loss, and infrastructure. Infrastructure includes water, sewer, and broadband. So now maybe things will change, and that won't be the final, but that's what it was as of Friday. Those were the purposes you could use it for.
And what was the price on that? Or the?
It's a little over $1 million.
Over $1 million? Okay.
So, and which we will be getting in 2 separate payments. We'll get half. Again, they can't give us a date, but it'll be given to us through the state. So it'll go to the state, and then the state will give it out to cities. There's just a few select cities within the state that are called entitlement cities. They will get theirs directly from the federal government. Ours will come through the state. The state has no authority over that money, so the state can't tell us how we can spend it or not spend it. That comes directly from the federal government, but we will get half, hopefully sometime, maybe by the end of the fiscal year, and then probably half at some point after, but I can't tell you when. That's all I have.
Okay, anything from any other departments? I know that people put stuff in Dropbox.
Yeah.
But, Chisel,
No, nothing this evening, Mayor.
Carlson,
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
and nice to have you right over here.
It's good to be back.
Zittigrum,
Nothing.
Hadley,
Nothing.
Hart.
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay, I've got, I know that we've talked about the corner bar sidewalk for a long, long time. And I know that it is the owner. I knew that we talked about sending a letter. They can either, well, Jeremy's still there. Can you tell me if anything has been sent for that?
Jeremy and Greg have been working with the property owners there.
Okay,
And so, I mean, they may have more information, but they have met with them and just
Okay.
trying to figure out what the best approach is and how they can maybe make the whole design better. Does that sum it up pretty well, Jeremy, Greg? So anyway, they're
Okay.
working on it.
I wanted to bring it to the meeting because I know we've had a lot of comments about it
Yep.
and concerns and
Yep, yep.
it's a safety hazard. So we'll
Yep,
look
it's being
forward
addressed.
for hearing more about that. Anything else to come before the council? Motion to approve,
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn? Okay. Pass. Thank you very much.